Wow, what a day. That was a little longer than I thought it would be. It is just 20 after 2 now. 20 after 2 on Saturday. I'm leaving the barn now. Our grooms are still here working their butts off trying to get done. We did for you this week. We went with a bunch of 3-year-olds. I didn't go with any of them. Harry, Kevin, and Jason went with their 3-year-olds so that you could see how they went. James and I went with 8 or 9 2-year-olds. Now those 2-year-olds were horses that, and I was upfront with everybody, horses that I had shared, that there were shares left in them. There really shouldn't be any, but I thought I would give everybody a chance to look at them, you know, and a little description of, you know, why I liked them, what did I like about them, why I like, you know, how they go, and there was about 9 of them. I could have went with 30 of them today and showed them off, but a lot of them, you know, the mischief makers, those horses all trained. They have no shares left. They all trained and trained well today. I didn't see everybody go, but I do, as I usually do, walk up and down the shed row after the day's over, the different shed rows, and ask them how the horses went. Talk to Kevin, you know, how did your horses go? Same as Jason and Harry. You know, we have 137 horses or whatnot. I wanted to have an update before I left for the day. How is everyone? Very few horses anybody had any issues with. I know the ones that I trained I was very happy with. James made a break with Path of Totality. We'll get into that in a minute. Mario made a break with Anteros. We'll get into that in a minute. We'll talk about why I feel there's been some issue with a few horses over the last few weeks. I made light of it and touched on it last week, how I felt these horses were getting very used to training on a hard track because our track was hard, but we conditioned it, so scraped it all up, put new material on it, mixed it all up. Now you got a cushion on the track, which is great, except some of the horses aren't transitioning well into it. I made a break with Miss Brampton Beast. Have you ever seen Miss Brampton Beast make a break today? Make a break at all? We were going a mile in 2:30, 2:32. I was just about to step on the gas, getting into the turn. She just couldn't square herself up properly. I heard her just crossfire, just a hair, just click, a little click. She lost herself for a second and run, and then did it again in the next turn also. So Miss Brampton Beast, her hobbles are a little bit long, her head's a little low. Didn't bother her before on that harder track, but now that there's a little stuff on there, she lost her footing and made a break. So we're going to talk about what I did. I'm going to talk about how all the 3-year-olds trained today. Some very, very impressive miles today. Not fast, just the first time I got to look at them also training, the same as you did today. You're going to see in the videos down below. It was new for me also in 2019. Yes, looked impressive. West 52nd looked like a beast. Oso Pine made a couple of breaks, but didn't have the hobbles on him. And I thought Jason, I saw him come on the track without the hobbles, you know, and I said to myself, might be a problem. And there was, he get into again, that deeper track, he just lost himself. And the turns of all places, he usually trots the turns great. And then what else do we have? Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. Had some real good trainers today, both on the 2-year-old and 3-year-old side. And we had what else do we have? A piss poor week racing. Very mediocre week racing is the nicest way to put it. We had some highlights of the racing week. Some horses that maybe didn't race good to you, but I can tell you what I saw as a driver. A couple of horses that got some buys, some passes because they were sick, and a lot of horses that didn't. Some horses that disappointed me and really annoyed me. Some horses that haven't been racing good, continue to not race good. So we have 4 horses in the Ohio sale coming up, and probably as many that as at least that many that we can sell privately moving forward. Simply got to move them out. If the horses aren't going to race good, you know, and don't want to put forth your, and I said this again and again and again in every video, and I'll say it again, it's 2:25 in the afternoon now, and we have grooms that are there working, work their butts off. I just left. I worked hard today, and you work hard for your money. If we have horses that don't want to put forth the effort, not because they're a little sick or they're a little sore, but just don't want to put forth the effort because they don't want to, I can't continue to stick up for them, shelter them, hide them from the reality of the situation, which is they're just not good horses. And when you buy 78 horses or have 78 horses in your barn, start from scratch with all of them, there's going to be a considerable amount that maybe are below par. And we have two that I can think of. We're going to be sending out emails. They're on thin ice, both these horses. Two of a Kind Hanover and Talking Peter. Not horrible horses, they're just not good. Talking Peter's got a horrible attitude. Probably one of the worst attitudes I've seen in quite a while. And Two of a Kind Hanover, honestly, I just don't think she's a good horse. Nothing terribly horrible about the filly. Not overly sour or ignorant. Just don't think she's a lot of talent. So these are two horses I'm going to be sending notes out. I've sent notes out about them. But we're going to talk about those issues. Then we have racehorses that aren't pulling their weight. We've sold some. We're going to continue to sell them. Art Seeker raced good last night. I'd love to see him win or be second on Tuesday because he's not making his way back into the stable. He's in the doghouse and he's going to stay there until we decide to sell him. He looks the part right now, so I'm sure we can get a couple of good lines on him. He'll make somebody a good racehorse. I don't want horses that try about 80%. They put out 80%, 30% of the time, and it's frustrating for me. I don't like to see any talent wasted. And in a horse like Art Seeker, he could be any kind of horse. He just chooses not to be. And he's not alone. You know, we raced a filly last night, Linnea. We all had big hopes for Linnea. Fast filly, took a mark of 155 as a 2-year-old. Just an impressive filly with breathtaking speed when she wants to turn it on. She just doesn't. She doesn't care. She's not sour. She doesn't pin her ears. She doesn't pull up. She just doesn't try whenever she wants to. And as I said to Harry last night, from here on in, every week's going to be stake week for her. I want her on her toes every time she goes to the track. If she doesn't want to put out, fine. She might be the laziest horse in the field, but she's going to be the tightest and strongest horse in every field. I can guarantee you that. So, a little training shift for Linnea moving forward. Disappointing mile, to say the least, out of her last night. Very disappointing. Too far gone. I thought, did what she could. She's just a giant. A big filly on an icy track, a tight track, the tightest track in Ontario, Canada probably. And stayed at it, did her work. Finished 5th. You could see she struggled a bit in the last turn, and then I shot her up the inside, and she trotted right through. I thought she raced very well. Obviously, I thought she could have and maybe should have won, but she did what she could. I can tell you that from the guy sitting behind her. She did what she could last night. So it's hard to be angry at her. She's a beautiful filly. She qualified well. I think maybe she needs to go back to Mohawk for a few starts, which is a tough thing to say out loud off a mile in 2.5 or 2.6 in London, but she's just too big to be racing on that smaller venue. Who else raced last night? Happy Holidays, I thought, raced fine. That was a big mile, 2 minutes. She's not the same Happy Holidays she was when she took a mark of 54 and 4 at Flamborough, but she's not going to go out and win in 2 minutes in London on a night, you know, where you don't want to be licking any metal outside last night. I can tell you that. Minus 15 before the wind chill. Yeah, that was cold. Not the coldest I've seen, but it's cold. And she did as well as she could. Ready for the Beach lost a shoe, I think, behind, and well, you could tell he looked dreadful. I think he probably was a winner outside of that. He didn't get around the track as well as I thought he would also. Might stick him back at Mohawk. I hate taking a horse like Ready for the Beach back to Mohawk, but he is in the Ohio sale, and I think we can get some good lines on him before the sale. So, you know, do we forego putting good lines on him to race him in a condition claimer in London where he may or may not do or may or may not get around the track? It's a tough call. In my mind right now, he's going to Woodbine next week, but I'll have to talk to Harry, see how he jogs on Monday. I know he did lose that shoe, but certainly didn't perform as well as I hoped he would. Now, pretty hard to pace on ice with 3 shoes, but anyway, I want to talk to Harry before I make any decisions. It'll be a you know, a decision between the two of us. He knows he's in the sale, and he knows what we're after. So just want to put some good lines on this colt before he goes to Ohio. Didn't really disappoint me last night. I mean, obviously I would like to see him go out and win, but can't ask horses to do things they simply cannot do. And for that, he gets a pass. I thought we raced 5 last night in London. Ready for the Beach was in. Too Far Gone was in. Linnea, Heartseeker, and Happy Holidays. That's it, 5. So, American League raced last night in Woodbine. I didn't think he raced good. You know, I told James I wish James had got away a little closer. Sometimes it's just not possible. In watching the replay, I just don't think it was possible. But I wouldn't say he raced well. A little less than well. So, but he had raced good the week before. It was coming in off a good line at Flamborough. American League certainly in no trouble of us wanting to dump him. I think we're desperately in search and need of a good class for him. But we'll get there. Anyway, we'll talk about those horses after. One of the biggest things outside of the training, the singular training trips I did today, and then again, the surprise to you of some of the 3-year-olds training, is the staking coming up. I had a gentleman come to me last night, Alan, very frugal staker, if you will, saying, hey, you know, I just want to talk to you about the staking this year. And, you know, we learned a lot last year. What we learned was racing in Ohio means you race in Ohio. There's not enough time to skip. There's 5 legs. You can't skip a leg and go somewhere because it's not one leg. I almost brought Oso Pine to the Houghton last year, which may or may not have turned out well or fruitful for us. But he definitely would have missed 2 stake races in Ohio, which likely would have cost him to miss the final. So we won't be staking outside of Ohio for our Ohio horses for the most part. The Wellwood goes on the night of the what would be the super final down there. So the final down there is the same night as the Wellwood. If your horse is good enough to race in the final, or good enough to race in the Wellwood, he likely made the final. Last year it was a little different. West 52nd made a break and then didn't garner enough points to make the final, so he could race in the Wellwood, where he obviously got beat in the elimination. Was his last start of the year, I believe. But different situation. So probably going to forego the Wellwood and Houghton payments for Ohio horses. One, because there's no standouts outside of a couple of really nice trotting fillies. I think got Bright Futures and some decent trotting colts. I would say Rose Run Valiant and Yours If You Want To are on a similar trajectory of the West 52nds and Yes and Oso Pine. They got a lot to prove, and again, looking at last year's staking, I think we'll forego the Wellwood and forego the Houghton for those types of horses, because the math just isn't there to get them there, whereas they are in some other cases. So there's that. There's a staking. Last year I'd sent you out the stake booklets. I got everybody their staking calendars sent out early, and we got to discuss it openly. But this year, Joanne's staking was sold to the gentleman that worked with Joanne, Jim Inglis. And Jim is obviously bombarded and swamped. He hasn't got the staking book to me yet. So here it is, January 26th, and I haven't even had a look at what stakes we're going to, let alone you. So as soon as I get them, you'll get them. And we'll be able to talk openly about that. You know, you need that yin and yang. You need that devil and angel on each shoulder. And somebody like Alan might be the angel or the devil, depending how you're looking at it, and I might be on the other shoulder. So we have a lot of nice horses this year. I wrote down a list of horses I thought were good horses I really liked. I thought had really bright futures, and I was very conservative with that list. I think out of 78, I had well over 50 I thought were extremely interesting, and felt bad that I didn't put another 10 or 15 on there. Some were so-so, and then those 2 I talked about in the outset, 2 of a Kind, Hanover and Talking Peter. I don't know if we're going to hang on to those horses. They're on very thin ice for different reasons. So that's the staking, that's the racing, that's the horses, that's the sale, that's the babies. We're going to get into it in a minute. Some bad news, you know, out of Ohio. Dean, you know, you never ever know, eh? Dean Beachy and his son Stephen. Dean was one of the head spotters everywhere in North America at all the sales. That one of the head guys for the Ohio sale pulled into a bar with his son. Some guy was fighting with his girlfriend and opened fire and killed them both. You know, just one of those things where just, you know, makes you want to hug your kids, and just terrible news, you know, and so random. You know, you see all these random shootings on the news, and Yeah, sure, it's a terrible thing, but these people, you don't know them, right? They're not your family, they're not your friends. So it's shocking, but when you know the people, it is heartbreaking. And I didn't know Mr. Beachy that well, but knew of him, saw him at a lot of the sales, and to see something like that happen is just unexplainable and very upsetting. And to his family, obviously, from my family and from all of us here at the stable, our condolences go to his family. Just a terrible, terrible thing, and something you never want to see happen, but it can't go without saying. So take a minute to think about that, because you just never know, right? So you never want to start or end a video on a morbid note, but it's just one of those things that needed to be said. We do feel for the Beachy family, and as I said, condolences to them. So that's the opening. That's everything we talked about. We're going to get into the racing a little closer and what really annoyed me this week. Some horses that really got a pass. For every art seeker in Linnea that makes me grind my teeth, you see a horse like Sunshine Inn. I drove Sunshine Inn poorly last week. I should have taken her to the back and had her racing on the end of it, and she still would have been short because she's scope sick. And for the people out there that are like, oh my God, Sunshine Inn's sick again, it's not that kind of sick. On the next shed row, Kevin's shed row, Dancing on My Own, who really had no issues with sickness last year to speak of for the most part. She had the exact same type of scope after her race. Now the scope is when you put it's literally a scope. They put it up their nose and they can look down in their throat and their lungs, full of mucus, redness, pimples, no blood, which is good, but sick. So when you go back and watch the race, I'm climbing all over Phil. It looks like I'm just going to inhale him. We come out of the turn, I get to his saddle pad, and she just packs it in. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, not again. I think this was an isolated incident. This filly hasn't so much as coughed since we brought her back into the barn, and really impressed me in the qualifier. And I think she got a really bright future. She's bred well, gets over the ground strongly and quickly, and I certainly have no issue with it. I was more angry at myself, certainly not angry at her, but really upset with the way I drove her. I think I drove her too hard. In my mind, I looked left leaving the gate. 1, 2, and 3 weren't on the gate, weren't leaving. Didn't appear to be leaving anyway. 6, 8, and 10 were the horses to beat. I simply just, in my mind, cross over to the front, let 1, 2, or more go. What's going on here now? Let 1, 2, or more of them go, and that was weird. Let 1, 2, or more of them go and sit and follow, and it just didn't work out that way. It ended up, I was stuck on the front, 28, 57, and 2, which seemed fast, but it seemed like we were going on. That's how quick this filly can get over the ground. And then I immediately released Phil, followed him, thought I had him beat coming out of the turn, and our filly just ended up running out of air for her sails, so to speak. And that happens. So she gets an automatic pass because she obviously does not exhibit those same signs that I saw, those issues I see with the other horses we mentioned. So she gets a pass. There's a lot of horses that look good, and if we bring 20 or 30 back, 10 of them are keepers. Probably 10 of them are going to be leaving quickly, and the other 10 are, as I said, on thin ice, and they're going to have to win their way back into our good nature and good favor. And that might sound a little harsh, but at the same time, as I said in the opening, we all work hard. You work hard for your money, I work hard. The grooms are still working. They work incredibly hard. And to have horses that just don't reciprocate that level of work ethic, especially in a sport where you really have to work harder than everybody and every horse around you, it's unacceptable. So we have 4 horses in the Ohio sale. We have at least as many that we're going to be selling privately. And then we got a lot of horses that are on their way in, some coming back, some getting ready. It was really exciting, especially having such a shitty night last night at London, to come back and watch Yes train and West 52nd, and even though Piney made a couple of breaks, but to watch these horses train today really picked my spirits up. You can only get kicked when you're on the ground so many times before it starts to really affect you, and to see those horses train today and then go with the horses I went with was pretty uplifting. So I'm just getting home now. I'm going to get right into it. We're going to go through who I trained today with James, what I thought about them, and then the commentary. So One of the videos didn't work well. You're only going to see a blurb of Ailson and Classic Con train. They both trained fantastic today. Curtis only got a half of a mile, and then he said the other drone he was using, maybe it was too cold. The video screwed up. We had an issue with this last week with set number 3 from last week is unusable, so we couldn't do that. We'll show you whatever clip we can, and then the audio wasn't syncing properly, so I'm literally gonna have to go in and do the audio afterwards. But at the same time, that's good. It gives me an opportunity to look at the breeding of the horse also, so I can reference it more. When I'm out there training, I'm talking with the horses, and the other horses are on the track, and sure, you lose a little bit of that. By the way, there's so-and-so, or there's so-and-so. But at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to tell you exactly why this horse is in front of you right now. Why are we looking at this horse? What makes this horse special? And I think overall I was happy today. A couple of breakers today. Miss Brampton Beast, as I said, made a very rare break. But this material on the track now, we go from a hard track all year to this track that was conditioned, then material put on it. It's that deep, which is great. But a lot of these horses that like that firmer track were struggling. And Miss Brampton Beast just felt like a nuclear bomb today. She just felt like she wanted to attack at all points. And I went to put her in gear in the last turn, and she just lost herself. I could hear her go click, and when you hear that click as a driver or a trainer, not a big deal, but they've crossfired. Their left, let's say their right hind leg in this case, has come up and touched that shoe as that horse is coming forward, touch that corner of the shoe, sometimes the foot. That's where they'll come in, they'll cut themselves, sometimes crossfiring. When you hear that click, when they're pacing, when they're trotting and acting up, that's forging. We'll get into that another time. But in this case, she crossfired, heard click, put a step in and run. So she had crossfired and made a break. Our hobbles were a little long for that track. Her head was a little low. We'll put a head pole back on her, but she's a beast, and you're going to see that. Up until that break, looked great. James went with Excellent Nation. He had a lot of good things to say about him. Looked really good. Just a lot of horses look good today. We didn't bring you the leaders of the pack because they're sold out, right? And the reason I brought you these horses were these are horses I thought were legit horses to have a look at. Horses that had some interesting angles. Horses that I thought people out there that were looking to buy shares, this might be a good place to start. They deserved to be talked about. They deserve to be looked at, and I thought I'd bring them to you. So we started out with 12. I trained Rooney Blue Chip. He was on this list. I trained him on what's today? Saturday. Trained him on Wednesday. He trained tremendous, but with the cold, I felt training him back might be a little tough for him. I trained him really hard on Wednesday. He trained tremendous, and I thought that maybe today was just a little too hard for him, so I didn't go with him again. I think that was the only scratch we had. A couple of breakers, a lot that looked good. Then we're going to get into how Jason and Kevin and Harry's barn looked. A lot of really, I was very happy today when I saw them go. So a lot of good looking horses there. We went through the staking, we went through the videos, we went through the Ohio sale, the bad news about Mr. Beachy, and the babies that are troubling. Only 2, which is good. 78 horses and 2 are troubling you. You're having a good day. So that's the opening. A lot going on right now. A little bit different format today. We had a lot going on. Like Curtis had the drone up and down, and there's horses turning and going. The only thing I said was put a saddle pad on, and Curtis got to pick them out when they come on the track. It worked out pretty cool, but it was only, what, 8, 10, about 20 horses in total. 30 maybe at the most. So, as I said, lots to get into. We're going to get into that in a minute. Talk about the stable, talk about the yearlings, talk about the sets. Be back in just a minute with what took place today.